As I said yesterday, and this is a summary of a more detailed version that's up today, but hopefully this is what you should really focus on. I need to guide my own life, understand where loving comes from, in the same way that the first order priority for photosynthesis is the availability of appropriate levels of sunlight, and the first order priority for basic human life is water and food. The analogous substance for objectively for all humane life is loving, the creative orientation as opposed to the destructive orientation, the giving orientation as opposed to the selfish orientation. My life's been devoted to exploring and discussing and living this, so I'll not belabor it now. But yesterday and today is my next stage at what for me is an important look at where does loving come from. I have no illusion that this analysis is precise, but I suspect that by orders of magnitude, I'm experiencing that by orders of magnitude it is useful for me, might be useful for you. My starting point was individuals. I'm an individual and was and am trying to understand who are the people I can model myself after, attempt to model myself, create myself after, that have fundamentally increased the level of loving on planet Earth. And quite frankly, yesterday and today has been a depressing, sobering, and enabling view that maybe no one ever has. But as you'll see, I've looked at individuals and then moved on to look at movements, organizations, professions. I've looked at the number of individuals, my guess, my estimate, that are saved per year. Jesus was instrumental in saving me, and yet he's been dead for 2,000 years. Also the number destroyed per year, not to be laid at Jesus' feet, but the abomination called Christianity created after him has been responsible for the death of millions, like 12 million Native Americans in the name of Spanish Christianity. So how many are destroyed? That was explicitly. How many collaterally? By virtue of Christian fundamentalism, which is about anything and everything except for loving, I'm not suggesting any malice here, but how much loving is destroyed by the existence of such things. If one then subtracts, as I have, saved per year from destroyed per year and collateral damage per year, one comes up with, I came up with, a net saved. And for this summary, this chart is sorted by this column, net saved. And then a final column I looked at was quite surprising. When I've thought of a King or a Gandhi, I've thought of people that saved, that is, moved from dead head and flesh, addictive head and flesh, into the part of our nervous system, heart. Tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. But my focus now is showing me that, well, short term they did that, but not long term. So let's look now quickly at the types of things I looked at, and I'll guess there are 50 or more. A loving, rich, example-rich environment, an Aboriginal village, maybe among the closest we have in this country is a Quaker village. A natural predisposition toward loving. Who knows why one person in a family might be incredibly loving. Gosh, what was that wonderful story? Little Women. where Beth is this incredibly loving individual, and the rest are pretty normal, but not heroes of loving. What seems to be a natural predisposition, a true need-rich environment. Jesus, the man, as distinct from Christianity repulsed Gandhi, but Jesus was his greatest hero of loving. Saintly parents, the sociologist Pitaram Sorokin, his studies indicated that most saints, most heroes of loving, come from a family with saintly parents. More broadly, the saint-rich life. Buddha, Teresa of Calcutta, extreme emergency, a great academic who walks the walk like Norman Finkelstein, a lust-poor environment as opposed to a lust-rich environment, maybe New Orleans, or a part of the city rich with crack or rich with bars and liquor stores is a lust-rich environment by comparison. So I looked at Gandhi, Obama's, MLK, the Egyptian revolutionaries, Mandela, Albert Schweitzer, the psychologists that I consider to be great psychologists, teachers, men and women in uniform, philosophers, sports figures, media figures, business people. Again, this is sorted by the net number of people saved per year. So let's start there. Loving rich, example-rich environment on planet Earth, I'm guessing, produces the most, 1,000 per year. Net loving people, I don't know, but that's my sort of immediate guess. The unexplained, I don't think it's biological. I think it's more largely the interpretation or choice. But in any case, the relatively unexplained, why is someone predisposed toward loving? Why is Beth and Little Women so predisposed toward loving? So the one that we can't really explain or hope to replicate, whereas a rich, loving environment, we both can and should if we really care about anyone. A true need-rich environment, the great psychologist Csikszentmihalyi, in his global studies, found a village in Italy, present-day Italy, up in the Alps, no electricity, relatively primitive. Everyone was needed from the time they get up in the morning till the time they went to bed in this agrarian town. Aboriginal native tribes may be the same. How counterintuitive. We rush with our science to make resource-rich environments, which makes everyone really superfluous, everyone unnecessary. The man Jesus created Gandhi, along with my biological father, created me, created Teresa of Calcutta, created King as near as I can see. It wasn't Paul, it wasn't John, it wasn't the apostles, although they may have played a role, and it wasn't any divine Jesus. It was the man Jesus, who also inspired Tolstoy, the creator of Gandhi, and maybe King. Saintly parents, Sorokin's studies indicated, produce the most saints. More broadly, a saint-rich life, maybe the lucky child that properly interprets the more healthy religious upbringing. I'm impressed by the self-immolating of the monks, not self-immolation itself, but this strikes me as heroic humanity. It seems to be maybe the most benign, most loving creating of the religions. Teresa of Calcutta, her non-political, just damn let's go love the neediest. My respect is, to my surprise, has been high for her. That doesn't surprise me, but it's growing. Extreme emergencies can bring out the best in us, and some of that can be sustained. a great academic like the heroic Jew standing up for the Palestinians, Norman Finkelstein, a heroic academic life, and the courage to walk the walk. Lust-poor environments, like cities that aren't filled, or parts of the city that aren't filled with crack and bars and prostitution. Temptation-poor environment, the Amish farm. Let's see if there are any surprises. The Tunisian self-immolator that created the Arab Spring. My point isn't to denigrate him, but it won't be a long-term impact in terms of creating loving people. It will move some people out of physical poverty. Is that bad? No, but it's not enough. Great intellectuals like Chomsky and Zinn, but for much of their life haven't walked the walk in any heroic way. No significant difference. These are people that I've admired. They've helped me, but no massive difference there. Men and women in uniform. Here's a surprise to most people, although not to me or to Gandhi. They don't take the job to kill. They take the job to put their bodies between those potential victims and people in harm. The religions are an abomination. When we look at the collateral damage, the 12 million Native Americans killed, the Palestinians being tortured by so-called Jews, the suicide bombers and other terrorists, the brutalization of women by Muslims, and here are the great killers, the business people. Is business bad per se? It's potentially the most altruizing of environments, but by and large we use it as our religion, and it destroys loving. I'll try and put this spreadsheet up online with a link in this the description of this video, where you can explore this further. But something else that I found interesting, which I think I've suspected, but I've not looked at nearly as clearly as I am now, the people that I've revered, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, what I wasn't seeing was how incredibly short-lived their altruizing effect was. This is not to diminish them, but it is to separate that when the goal is fundamentally material, political, liberating Libya, or bringing civil rights, when that is the explicit goal, as opposed to bringing love itself, which was Jesus' goal, it may have, and it has had it at times, a tremendous altruizing effect, moving people from head and flesh into love, but short-lived, and that's not good enough. Whereas the man Jesus, who is understood by some to simply have been a champion of loving, which can't be done in a cave, Teresa's definition remains the best I've seen. To paraphrase and take a little bit of liberty, she said, love is that which cannot remain passive in the face of suffering. Love is that which runs toward suffering to eliminate it. But her goal, and Jesus' goal, was to create more loving. And that seems to be what is the most persistent. The other heroes, the Tunisian self-immolator, Francis of Assisi, whose heroic humanity has otherwise been diminished by association with a corrupt church. The people I've so admired, short-term, but not long-term. Something I've been very concerned with, we all should be, is destruction in the Echo War, Earth Liberation Front, Deep Green Resistance, Derek Jensen's thrust. These aren't to be denigrated. What Gandhi most reviled was not physical violence. It was cowardice. But I can't think of a time when that hasn't moved people away from loving. I just don't see it as other than a self-defeating suicidal strategy.